HYROX is absolutely exploding and trending right now. What started as a single event back in Hamburg in 2018 with only 650 athletes at the time has now turned into a global event. This season alone, over 425,000 athletes are expected to compete in over 85 events in 30 different countries. That's over 1,000% growth in just 5 years. London has had to introduce a lottery system to even get a ticket to handle over 15,000 people trying to get in. You now see CrossFit athletes crossing over, marathoners now doing this event, and honestly I think it's just going to keep growing. So after being offered a ticket for London with just 7 days notice, I could not say no. I wanted to see what it was all about. So I booked in, didn't know the format, didn't know the stations, didn't train specifically for it, but was excited to see what would happen. In this video I'm going to break down my 113 HYROX race station by station. So if you've entered into your first one, you can see what it's all about. And then at the end of the video, I'll talk through my thoughts, whether I do another one, whether I even enjoyed it, and give you an insight into my future training and if this will change. Quick bit of context here. I've done 3 marathons, fastest in 2:49. I've done a 33-minute 10K, 16-minute 5K. Running is my strength compared to the other HYROX athletes. This is because this is what I specifically train for, this is what I focus on throughout the week. Whereas of course, a lot of the HYROX athletes, if you're doing the stations, if you're doing classes, you can't manage the same running load. So this is definitely what I had to lean on going into the event, to hopefully mean that I can compete with the other HYROX athletes going into it. The obvious thing though was I had zero experience with the actual stations, running on compromised legs, so different. And even just the indoor format of having to know where to run, what station is next. It was just completely different to anything that I've done before. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go through station by station, where I place, what percentage that puts me in, whether it be top 20, top 30, top 90, and then my thoughts throughout the actual event. Because it was very different to what I thought it was gonna be. I genuinely thought it was gonna be a lot easier than it was. Let's get into the race details. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through station by station, and in case you don't know, the format is 8 times 1 kilometer run, and between each run you do a fitness station. This can be ski erg, sled push, the row, wall balls, lunges, but we'll go through the exact order and how I found each event. We started off with the run, which of course was my strength going into it. I felt very comfortable, but I just didn't want to red line too early. My goal was to try and hover around half marathon to marathon pace. My total running pace actually ended up being a lot slower than this, but that was what I thought going into it. After the first run, I was in 68th place. I don't know out of how many, I'm guessing a few thousand who competed that day. So I was placed pretty high, but that was to be expected. I knew later on I'd slowly creep down the rankings as I just find it more and more challenging throughout. We then moved on to the ski erg, and this is pretty intuitive. I've not really done many ski erg workouts before, but you just basically want to get a full stretch. You want to make sure that your resistance is fairly high and that your speed of the movement is quite consistent. So I just got in a good rhythm there. I knew going into it that under 4 minutes is a really good time. Around 4 minutes is kind of average-ish. I actually ended up being on the slower side. I finished it in 4:29, which I believe includes the rock zone. So if you've not done a HYROX before, you have to take into account the rock zone, which is the time that you run in between each station, not including the actual 1 kilometer run and not including to the station. So as you get in between each one. So including that, it was 4:29, which then placed me from 68th all the way to 300. So 299 to be precise. So yeah, fairly slow. But then going into the second run, as I did conserve some energy, I then moved back up to 60th place and overtaking a lot of runners throughout. So at this point, I felt very strong. I was conserving all the energy. I did also have my amazing fiance supporting me. I remember seeing her on the ski right in front of my face, which was giving me some nice encouragement. But I truly did not know what was to come. The pain had not kicked in yet. I was still feeling fairly confident that I could get 65-ish, at least minimum sub 70 overall. But later on, you'll see why this never happened. The next station was a sled push. This is when I quickly realized that my footwear of choice was not optimal. So I chose the HYROX Yellow, very quick for running, but very unstable for HYROX. When I was pushing off, my heels were kind of sliding off a little bit. When you're on your toes, you know, you're having to use a lot of foot strength to keep that locked in. And this is when I really noticed the lactic acid build up in my legs, and it quickly became very tough. Still, not a howler of a performance. The sled push time was 2 minutes 14, which then placed me back to 235th place. And I was sort of just with the people around me. I was copying their cadence. This is when I took on my first gel. So you wanna get to the end, have a quick breather, let the lactate come out of the system, come out of the muscles, and then go again. So you repeat this 4 times with a total distance of 50 meters to complete the station, which reminds me the ski was 1,000 meters in case you didn't know. So 1 kilometer run so far, 1,000 meter ski erg, 1 kilometer run into the 50 meter sled push. It's also a lot heavier than I thought. So it's 152 kilograms, which when you're crouched down and in position, it feels like a lot of strain on your lower back. I maybe got too low or my feet weren't as far out as they could be. I'm not too sure if my technique was spot on, but it felt okay. It's definitely very, very impressive for those that don't take a break at all though, because it's a lot of weight. Never mind the pro division that they do over 200 kilograms. Now going into the 3rd out of 8 kilometer repeat, this is where I really started to feel the fatigue. The lactic buildup from the sled was so different from the other stations. I had to walk a little bit before getting into my run, and this is where I really struggled. I still held pretty strong though, and only lost out on around 100 places, which sounds like a lot, but out of thousands of athletes across the day, this is the timing of, it wasn't too bad. So I held pretty strong, was holding with the runners around me, but definitely felt like I was losing my one strength, which was the running, and time was slipping away. This then goes into the next sled, which is the sled pull. The sled pull, again, similar to the sled push, 50 meters, this time 103 kilograms. And for the first rep, completely fine. I was just locking myself in position, using my arms to feed back, and I did that fairly quickly. But then I realized very fast that the fatigue in my biceps, in my arms was too much. The second time when I came to try and pull it, it just wouldn't move. So then I had to move into using my body weight, where I'd walk backwards and then get to the front again. Walk backwards, which is obviously a lot slower, but of course more efficient in minimizing fatigue. One rule for this is that you cannot step outside the box, and the rope gets very annoying. It gets in the way, so you have to just flick it backwards, walk back, flick it backwards. It's quite a lot of just admin outside of the lifting. Again, 12.5 meters for 1 push and pull. So 4 times to complete the 50 meters total. Luckily after this station, the legs didn't feel as compromised when running compared to the push. The fatigue buildup in the legs wasn't too bad, and I managed to gain a lot of places after this. I was then in 453rd position, and after that run, managed to push back up to 289. So we're kind of similar to where we were straight after the ski. The next station was the burpee broad jump. So in this one, I quickly realized how fatigued I was. This was probably one of the worst places in terms of exhaustion that I'd felt throughout the entire race. I remember lying down on the floor, sweat was dripping, and I looked at how far I needed to go and I wanted to give up. It was so much harder than I thought. I also didn't really have the mobility to flick my leg around, and so I had to kneel once and then put my leg forward, which turned out to be a lot more efficient and energy conserving. This was probably my worst station so far. I felt so tired and was really struggling with the technique. The judge actually gave me an initial warning on this station too. If you get another one, you get a 3-minute penalty. And this was because I was doing an alternating land with my feet instead of landing them in sync. That kind of put me off, and I got really, really worried. So then I started being really careful, not jumping out as far, and really making sure that I was landing on my heels. But then I was caught off balance a few times. It really just threw me off. The total distance of the burpee broad jump is 80 meters. You've got to go all the way down and then round and back. It honestly looks like such a long way when you're lying on the floor looking ahead. And they're really strict with your starting position, your hand placement, making sure that you don't edge forward with your feet. So it's very easy to get a penalty here, especially when you don't have the experience, and I didn't have any at all. After the run where I got myself back to 289th, I then fell back to 581, completing the burpee broad jumps in 4 minutes and 21 seconds. We were then on to the next run. Again, gained a lot of places here, moved up to 280th. The run times on the breakdown I think a little bit off, so I'm not going to quote these exactly, but overall for the 8 kilometers, because the last one was very slow, I averaged 4:21, which is okay. It was stronger than definitely the functional stations, but there's a lot of improvement and practice to run when your legs are just so fatigued after the fitness station. The next up was the row, which ended up being my second weakest station, I'd say. Somewhat on purpose, but I feel like I could have pushed a little bit harder. I was always told to treat this as a recovery. Your heart rate comes down a little bit. So I went maybe a little bit too easy than I could have done. I didn't even fully strap in my feet. I just thought I'll kind of keep this relaxed, keep this in control, and aim for around 4 minutes. I actually went a lot slower than this and did 4 minutes 45, including that rock zone, and then fell from 280th to 819th, which yeah, wasn't the best. We then went into the next run, and on this I felt really strong. It did feel like a recovery. You're not using your legs too much. You're obviously driving with your elbows into your chest. And then on this next run, I made up a lot of gain again, and I was feeling pretty good. I was feeling very confident, and I saw on the clock that definitely I was so sure I would get under 70. I thought I'd probably get around 65 minutes. There was still so much time to go. You'll see later what happened, where I completely crushed my race. The next event was the farmer's carry. One of my mates actually arrived just at this point, so when I saw him, it gave me a bit of a boost. I also saw someone just in front of me, and he kept dropping the weight. So what I wanted to do, and my only goal for this station, was just to not let go of the kettlebells. Just keep pushing through and having belief that I can get to the end. So my traps were burning, I could feel my forearms blowing up, but we got to the end, and we finished the farmer's carry in 1 minute 31, which actually turned out to be one of my strongest stations. So I was really, really happy with that. Into the next run, which was fairly consistent with the previous ones, and then into arguably one of the hardest stations, especially when the fatigue is built up, especially with 20 kilograms on your back, and that was the sandbag lunges. For this, the distance is 100 meters, and you have that 20 kilograms sandbag on your back. You cannot drop it, otherwise you get a penalty instantly. So if you want to rest, you just have to stop with it on your back, and you have to make sure that you pick it up from the station, do a full loop, and put it back exactly where it was. You cannot drop it outside of the marked out area. For this, I was bit. I was really, really struggling. In training, I found them fairly easy. I've always done heavy dumbbell lunges, not for this many reps, but I thought this would be one of my strengths. It turned out to be excruciatingly painful, very, very difficult, a lot more challenging than I expected. My legs were completely cooked at this point, and we finished these in 4 minutes and 1 second, which is not too bad. We were still looking strong. At this point, I'd been going for 57 minutes and 39 seconds with just 1 run to go and wall balls. That was it. Most people do the wall balls in around 4 or 5 minutes. The run I'd be doing in about 3 minutes 30. So that would be 8 minutes added top from there, which would be the 105, which I arrogantly thought I would achieve, and I was humbled very quickly. The run after sandbag lunges was the slowest by 2 minutes. I had to walk, I had to get a Red Bull, I had to stop. I literally, as competitive as I am, and if I was watching myself, I'd be screaming at myself, why aren't you running? You literally can't. Your legs are completely cooked. I started walking a bit, got my breath back, started to walk a little bit, just couldn't get it going. The lactic slowly started to seep out of my legs, and I got running again. And I completed this one 2 minutes slower than all the others, not including the rock zone, in 5:27, and into the final station, which was the wall balls.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
Never chat to me again about wall balls. Oh my days. This completely ruined my whole race. I'm devastated to this day, we are now 1 day after the race, at how bad these went. I literally placed, I think, last place or towards the very, very end, completely ruined my event, where we finished these in 10 minutes and 12 seconds. I had my fiance and friend watching beside, and they kept shouting, supporting me. All I had to do was do these in a very, very below average time of 8 minutes to get under 70 minutes total. I couldn't even manage that. I wanted to give up. The judges kept saying no throw. This is where I had completely unstable shoes that just wouldn't work. I didn't have the technique. I didn't practice these. I should have done, and it completely ruined my HYROX experience in terms of not getting the goal time. Overall though, which we'll go into in terms of the thoughts of the event, incredible community, amazing atmosphere, gets you completely buzzed, but this just was a nightmare. You are so close to the finish line. I could see where I needed to run, and I was looking up and thinking, I just can't do it. My legs were done. After sandbag lunges, after the final run, and it was a nightmare. So I was basically doing like 4 or 5 at a time. Typically people break them up in like 20 or 30. You see people do 100 unbroken in about 3 minutes. So to do 10 minutes was devastating for the overall time. So we finished in 1:13 and finally crossed the line, and I was absolutely gone. HYROX athletes, you have my respect. This is an incredibly tough event. You have to train specifically for it, which I didn't, and you have to be incredibly fit, in incredible shape for this. So honestly, hats off to you guys. So, final thoughts. Did I love it? Honestly, not really throughout. It was painful. It was harder than I expected. A lot of the stations were kind of awkward and things that I wasn't really used to. I was basically at threshold, close to redlining throughout the entire time. And there's no real pacing, at least for my inexperienced self. It's just suffering for a full hour. People that are good at HYROX are beasts. It's a middle ground of being super strong for your body weight, super fast, good at endurance, and it's a very unique skill set that you need to train for. The running side, yes, it was my stronger aspect of the whole event, but it could have been better. I definitely, if I was to do another one, need to practice running on compromised legs after lunges, after doing those stations. It is so different. So despite suffering throughout the entire time, in hindsight, upon reflection, I did enjoy it. It's an incredible community. There were people coming up to me, chatting. Everyone is a very close-knit community and tight-knit, and it's awesome to see. I would, yes, probably do another one. I'd love to get closer to 65 minutes, around that. I don't think sub 60 is on the radar. I'd have to train probably and dedicate myself to a full year specific to HYROX based training, which I personally am not willing to do. So I don't think HYROX is going to become my main focus. I still enjoy being outside, running, training for marathons. It's different kind of suffering, but I just enjoy having my training tailored towards more of that. But there's no doubt that the atmosphere was absolutely electric. My battery just cut out there, but I was just saying, if you're thinking about doing your first HYROX, hopefully this gives you an insight of what the race day experience is really like. Hopefully it hasn't put you off, and if you're an experienced HYROX athlete, again, fair play, you are a beast. Click subscribe to enjoy more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.